Hello and welcome to Story Art. Today our story is about the Good Samaritan, and it can be found in Luke chapter 10 verses 25 to 42. In the story today, Jesus is talking with a religious expert, a teacher of sorts, who knew and understood the laws of Moses. And during their conversation, the gentleman asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? In the times of Jesus, Jewish people looked at Jewish people as being their neighbors. And there was a group of people called Samaritans who were looked down upon and were not thought of as a neighbor. So Jesus answered this gentleman's question by telling a story. And in the story, you are met with a person laying on the ground who has been beaten and injured and left to die by thieves. And along comes a religious leader of the Jewish church. He sees the man, he looks at him, and he crosses to the other side of the road and passes. And then someone else comes along, someone who assists the leaders of the Jewish church. He also sees the man and walks to the other side of the road and walks on. The third person to come along is a Samaritan. And if you remember, Samaritans were somebody that Jewish people did not like. The Samaritan sees the man injured. He nurses his wounds. He picks him up and he carries him to the closest inn. And he leaves money with the innkeeper and says, "Here, take care of this man. When I return, if it took more than this amount, I will pay you this amount." So what was Jesus trying to teach this Jewish leader? That everybody is your neighbor. No matter if it's somebody you don't like, if it's somebody that people around you don't like, if it's a group of people that people don't like, they are still your neighbors, and you are expected to help and take care of them and be a neighbor. So our project today is acrylic painting. So you're going to have your palette. You're going to have a cup of water. You're going to have some of your paints. I put a dab of each kind of paint on a paper plate to use as my palette. And you're going to have various brush sizes depending on what you want to do. So before you get started, just make sure your palette's going to come with this plastic wrap. Make sure that you pull that off and discard it so that you can work. Okay? And you can do your story however you want it. How I picture this today is the road. Now remember, in the time of Jesus, we didn't have pavement. So I'm going to take and I'm going to mix some of my white. Okay? And I'm going to take some of my black. And I'm sort of going to make a gray color. So I need a little bit more white. Okay. As you can see, I'm mixing in, again, more white because I want sort of a grayish road. And I'm going to come back over to my palette. And I'm going to go across and paint whatever road that I happen to want to paint. So here's my road. Because remember, like we said, in the time of Jesus, roads were not pavement, okay? And so I think of the roads of those time, if you've ever been down a dirt lane or you've taken a hike on a trail, that's sort of like what I picture the roads being. Okay, so there's my road. Okay, and because it's a road from that time, the other thing I think about when I think about dirt roads, sometimes dirt roads will have, just because of how tire tracks go or people walk the path, they might have a little bit of grass or something coming down the middle of the road. So I'm going to do that just to make it look more like that for myself. Okay. And then of course along the side of the road is going to be some type of trees or whatever happens to be there. I think it's funny, when I was growing up, I thought of the story of the Good Samaritan. I always thought of trails, and so I think of trees and stuff growing around. So I could use some of my yellow even, just to make this look more like a forest along my roadway. Okay, so there's my growth along my roadway. Okay, then I want to think about the story and what's involved in the story. And because I'm not real good at people, I'm going to do something a little bit different here, because your characters do not need to look like real people, okay? They can look like whatever you are comfortable drawing. So because I have somebody that was injured, I'm going to come along, and my injured person, because he's injured, is just going to be this red patch here on the road, okay? So that's just going to represent my injured person laying there, okay? And then, if we remember right from the story, we had some religious leaders come along. So I'm going to show their footprints here. So number 1, and he crosses over and he goes the other way, okay? And then we had the second gentleman that comes in, okay? And again, he crosses over and they go the other way, and they go on their way down the road. And as you see, it doesn't look exactly like footprints, but that's okay, because I'm going to remember what the story is about. Okay? And then along comes my Good Samaritan. And he's going to come along, but instead of crossing the road, he's going to come up, and he's actually going to help this person out. So I'm going to represent my Good Samaritan with yet another color. Okay? And in my eyes, somebody who's good. Yellow is always a good color to represent good, if you think of the bright sunlight. So here's my Good Samaritan helping. And by accident, I made a heart, which is sort of cool. Okay? So this is my representation, and I can finish my painting by going in and filling in some of the background, filling in some grass. If I wanted to, I could fill in more grass along the bottom of the road down here just to fill in and make it fill in my palette. Okay, now you don't have to represent your story the way I did. This is just how I see the story. And have a good day. And remember to be a good Samaritan, to remember that everybody is your neighbor. Bye.